Hello, my name is Andy and I am the village idiot, and I'm on with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. Welcome to the 16th and last parish in the district of Bolsover. Now, I wasn't intending to start this video where I'm standing right now. I was intending to start in the town centre, which you're going to be seeing in a few moments, but I was driving down from Clown into the very last parish here, and I was met with this on my right hand side. A fantastic view across the valleys in this part of Derbyshire, and do you know what, it's a very nice clear day and I can see for absolutely miles here. It's absolutely amazing. There was no way I wasn't going to stop here and get this at the beginning of this video. And where are we? Well, if you've watched the entire series you'll know where I am, but even if you don't, I'll tell you anyway. We're in the town and the parish of Olde Bolsover. Bolsover is a market town some 18 miles away from Sheffield, 26 from Nottingham and 27 from the county town of Derby. The civil parish for this town is called Olde Bolsover, and it includes the town and the new Bolsover model village, along with areas such as Carlyle, Shuttlewood, Stanfree, Oxcroft and Whaley. Its population at the 2011 census was 11,673. Bolsover, along with several nearby villages, is situated in the northeast of the county of Derbyshire, and it's the main town in the district of Bolsover. The origin of the name is uncertain. It may be derived from Bula's Ofer or Boll's Ofer, respectively the Olde English for Bull's Ridge and Boll's Ridge, the ridge associated with a person named Boll. In the 1650s it was referred to as Bolsouer. Bolsover is mentioned in the Domesday Book, named Bolsouer, where it is described as the property of William Peverel. Bolsover became the seat of the Peverel family, and in the 12th century a keep was built. This predated the present Bolsover Castle, which was erected in 1613. Bolsover has lots of references in and around it to the Cavendish name. In 1657, the leading royalist William Cavendish, first Marquis of Newcastle, published a book entitled in French La méthode et invention nouvelle de dresser le cheval, which was translated in 1743 to mean a general system of horsemanship in all its branches. It covered the dressage of horses at his Bolsover, Welbeck Abbey and Antwerp stables, and contains engravings and views of his estates, including Bolsover. Two railway lines once served Bolsover. The Midland Railway, which was later part of the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, arrived first, with their north to south running Doley line from Staveley to Plesley, opened in September 1890. The other line was the highly ambitious west to east running Lancashire, Derbyshire and East Coast Railway, of which only the middle section from Chesterfield to Lincoln was ever built, opening in March 1897. This was brought to a premature demise in December 1951 by the deteriorating state of its biggest engineering feature, the 2,624-yard Bolsover Tunnel, which ran beneath the limestone ridge on which stands Bolsover Castle. The tunnel was mostly filled in with colliery waste in 1966 and 67, and both ends are sealed off now. The major industry of the area used to be coal mining. The two main collieries closed in 1993. The first to close was the Bolsover Colliery, one of the 5 mines owned by the Bolsover Colliery Company, on the 7th of May 1993, and the second, Markham Colliery, closed on the 2nd of July of the same year. The Bolsover Colliery Company was one of the companies in the original FT30 list of companies. The other main employer in Bolsover was the Coal Lighting Chemical Company, which produced smokeless fuel and chemicals from coke, and was founded in 1937 and moved its main headquarters from London to Bolsover in 1952. Another significant local employer was the Bolsover Hosiery Company, which was established in 1951 by Bolsover Urban District Council. The main factory site on Oxcroft Lane employed approximately 500 people. The town falls within the Bolsover parliamentary constituency. The MP for the constituency from 1970 until 2019 was the Labour Party's Dennis Skinner, a former miner. He would lose his seat in 2009 to the Conservative Mark Fletcher. In terms of sport, Bolsover Colliery FC used to play in the FA Cup. Current club FC Bolsover, founded in 2013, play in the Northern Counties East Football League. Okay, so Bolsover doesn't have the largest of town centres, which is a good thing for me because it's easier on my legs. What it does have is a nice mix of the old and the new. Certainly the old. There's an example there of a house here in the town centre, right on the edge of the town centre. And of course you have the new as well. Plenty of new shops and buildings around. And even a fire station right here in this very small town centre. Now what it does have as well is perhaps one of the most interesting things we've seen so far on the channel, and that's a very large castle, and we'll see that later in the interesting features section. But for now, let's carry on walking. In 2007, Bolsover was chosen as the location to shoot the film Summer, starring Robert Carlyle and Rachael Blake. Many scenes from the film were filmed on the Castle estate, which is affectionately known by the Bolsover residents as the Wimps, because it was built in the 1950s by George Wimpy, the construction company, and lies just underneath Bolsover Castle. The town has had several famous residents, and these include the Heartbeat actor Stephen Blakely, Peter Fiddler, an explorer, mapmaker and surveyor of the Hudson's Bay Company, the author Mark Morris, Richard O'Dwyer, who was a computer programmer, creator of TVShack.net, whom the United States sought to extradite over alleged copyright infringement, and of course the long-standing MP for Bolsover, Dennis Skinner. Bolsover today is made up of 98.6% white British citizens, and there is a fairly sizable Asian minority amongst the remaining 1.4%. The parish covers just over 18 square kilometres and has a population density of 657.9. If you want to buy a house in the town, the average price you'd be looking at, dependent greatly on location, would be £144,000. Well, thankfully, in terms of amenities, Bolsover has everything clustered in a very small town centre, including this park, which is just on the edge of it. So let's see what Bolsover has to offer when it comes to amenities now. This is Hornscroft Park, and it's one of Bolsover's town jewels, located on the edge of the town centre. The parkland was gifted to the town in 1921 by the Duchess of Portland, and in 1937 was set out as a national fitness park, complete with tennis court, bowling green, chessboard, children's play area and planted flower beds. The park also plays host to the Bolsover Gala, which takes place at the end of June every year, along with other community activities. There are 7 buses which serve Bolsover, these being the 1, 1A, 49, 53, 53A, 81 and 583, with destinations including Langwith, Sheffield, Mansfield, Claycross and Chesterfield. In terms of pubs, Bolsover does quite well. There are quite a few dotted around the town, including the Pillar of Rock, which is right next to Bolsover Castle, the Bluebell, seen here, the Cavendish Hotel, the Pump, which is so named because of the interesting pump in front of it, and there are a number of former pubs dotted around the town as well, including the White Swan, which is now being turned into apartments. As a market town, there's quite the eclectic range of shops, from chain stores to independent retailers. The town also has a petrol station, And there are a number of educational establishments around the town as well. What you're looking at here is an adult education centre. We'll see the main Bolsover school a little later. In terms of healthcare, there's a medical centre and a pharmacy, and there's also a dentist here too. And now for churches. What you're looking at here first is a Methodist church which replaced a former Methodist church a little further down the road, which handily had a nice plaque outside to explain what it is now. The main church is St Mary and St Lawrence's Church, a Grade II listed building. This is a medieval church dating from the 13th and the 14th centuries, and it was closed for restoration from early in 1877, which took place under the supervision of John Brightmore Mitchell Withers, an architect from Sheffield. The chancel arch was rebuilt, adding an organ and a chapel, and the chancel was completely renovated. The floor was laid with tiles and the seating was renewed, and the roofs were repaired and covered by red Staffordshire tiling. The bells were recast by Taylor of Loughborough, a clock was provided by Smith of Derby, and the organ enlarged by Foster and Andrews of Hull. The total cost of the restoration was around £6,000, which is equivalent to just under £4.5 million today. The church would reopen on the 16th of July 1878. This was after the church was destroyed by fire in 1897, but fortunately the Cavendish chapel was saved. The church was rebuilt by the architect Louis Ambler in September 1897 and was consecrated by the Bishop of Southwell in 1898. This would not be the only time the church suffered a fire. It was again badly damaged in 1960 when the east end of the church, the vestry and the high altar were destroyed and half the slate and timber roof were damaged. The Cavendish Chapel contains monuments and memorials to Charles Cavendish, who died in 1617. He was the son of Bess of Hardwick and Sir William Cavendish. A standing wall monument on the south wall to Henry Cavendish, the second Duke of Newcastle, and his wife and one of his daughters. And 3 members of the Cavendish Bentinck family on the east wall, a 19th century stone monument. There's also a Catholic church here, which is directly opposite the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now let's have a look around the town and see what we can find in terms of interesting things. And you would do well to find things which were not Bolsover Castle or the new Bolsover model village, but I think I managed to find a couple of things. Here, for example, is a mile marker. This is just outside the church, telling us we are 150 miles away from London. Not far away from there is an old telephone exchange, which is used now as a sorting office. Now, of course, the main reason why a lot of people come to Bolsover is because of this, Bolsover Castle. There you go. And it's behind these gates here. It's not a very big castle. It does stand very prominently, though, on top of the hill that Bolsover finds itself on. Nice place to have a castle historically. Now, obviously, today we can't go in because it is closed. Even the sign here says it's closed, but never fear, because we still can get some decent shots of the outside of it in a short while. And also, I've got a few pictures myself from last time I visited the castle myself, and they'll come to you in today's picture bit. So to Bolsover Castle. As mentioned earlier, Bolsover Castle was built in the early 17th century, the present castle lying on the earthworks and ruins of the 12th century medieval castle. The first structure of the present castle was built between 1612 and 1617 by Sir Charles Cavendish. The site is now in the care of the English Heritage Charity, as both a Grade 1 listed building and a scheduled ancient monument. The original castle was built by the Peverel family in the 12th century and became crown property in 1155 when William Peverel the Younger died. The Ferrers family, who were Earls of Derby, laid claim to the Peverel property. When a group of barons, led by King Henry II's sons, Henry the Young King, Geoffrey Duke of Brittany and Prince Richard, who was later called Richard the Lionheart, revolted against the king's rule, Henry spent £116 on building the castles of Bolsover and Peverel in Derbyshire. The garrison was increased to a force led by 20 knights and was shared with the castles of Peverel and Nottingham during the revolt. Castle Street was one of the original streets of the medieval settlement which grew up around the castle. Both sides of Castle Street were lined with cottages and houses until the mid-20th century. The site of a sportsdrome was occupied by 3 long-standing brick-built cottages with sash windows and tiled roofs. The cottages had cellars going down into a pillar of rock, which is said to have remained intact during Bolsover's transformation into a coal town. This is where the name of the Pillar of Rock pub, which stands close to Bolsover Castle, comes from. Okay, so Bolsover Castle might be the most important historical feature in the entire town, but there are some others. And the first of those, we're going to walk up this little hill towards something called the Cundy House. Now, I didn't know this existed before I came here today, and I've been to Bolsover a few times, and this is something new to me. I don't even know where it is. It seems to be over there, so let's go and investigate. Not far away from the castle is something called the Cundy House, which is a recently restored 17th century conduit house that was used to supply water to the castle. In the middle of the building is a brick water tank which still collects water. It was built in the early 17th century and supplied water to the cistern house of the castle until the 1920s. The roof is a solid stone vault to make it secure and impervious to decay, unlike timber. The Cundy House is in the care of English Heritage and managed by the Bolsover Civic Society. As well as the Cundy House, there were 4 conduit houses situated on Bolsover Hill, one of which can be seen by the roadside. A scheme to restore the conduit house was carried out in 2002 and 2003 as part of a joint initiative between English Heritage, the Bolsover Civic Society and the local town and district councils. The aims of this project were to preserve the building, remove a safety hazard and to raise the profile of this historic structure. Now to the marketplace. Bolsover Market takes place every Tuesday and Friday mornings. Pitches are available from just £8 and market stalls are available from just £12 with discounts for multiple stalls. All around the town you will find references to the Cavendish Trail. Now we come to New Bolsover, a model village to the south of the town. This is a pit village and it was begun in 1891 by the Bolsover Mining Company. It's a model village built by philanthropic colliery owners which was to benefit and improve the lives of workers at Bolsover Colliery. The architects for the village were Arthur Brewell and Basil Bailey of Nottingham. I'll tell you something. There's always something quite amazing about seeing houses like this. I don't know what it is. They just have this sort of aura about them, don't they? That you just don't see in modern day houses. And I'll tell you something as well. These were built to last, because these houses will still be as bulletproof as they were on the day they were built, right here in 2021. The village had a school and a cooperative store. On the edge of the village were allotments, pigsties and the village cricket pitch. The village had no public houses, but there was an institute that would serve workers no more than 3 glasses of beer a day. The colliery company employed a policeman and antisocial behaviour could result in fines or dismissal. It's known as the Model locally and was completed in 1896. It had 200 houses for miners and colliery officials, and there was a tram track around the back of the village which linked to the pit directly, delivering coal to each coal store behind each house. The contents of the ash privies were carried away. The model these days remains in good repair. Its houses are either privately owned or owned by the local authority. The houses are built in a double horseshoe around a village green. They're 2-storey cottages with attics and were built in terraces of 8 in red brick with a decorative first floor band and sawtooth eave cornices. They have Welsh slate roofs and a decorative ridge cresting. Each house has 3 light casement windows in ashlar surrounds and a doorway with ashlar lintels and an overlight. Needless to say, all of the houses are Grade 2 listed buildings. Now it's time to take a drive around the rest of Bolsover, or at least some more of Bolsover, because this is quite a large town and it's impossible to cover every square inch. Enjoy! Our drive around takes us to Whaley, or sometimes pronounced Whaley by the locals. This is a small village located 1 mile away from Whaley Thorns, which is in the parish of Langwith. The village has a garage and a former watermill, now a home, of which the large mill pond still survives. Set in arable farmland, the village was a farming settlement and remains so to this day, with several farming families living in the village. The Diocese of Derby archives record that there was an ancient chapel in the village, but no trace of that remains. A school known as St Mary's Mission and schoolhouse were built in the 1860s, but both of these are now residential. There are 3 prehistoric rock shelters behind the former school on Mag Lane and opposite the pub, the Black Horse, and these are linked to the Cresswell Crags. Then there's Scarcliffe Park, an area of woodlands at the south end of the village which has Bronze Age and Roman remains, and it's surrounded by a pale ditch. The village is a conservation area and has an active residents' association. The majority of the buildings are constructed from the local limestone. Interestingly, the waterworks on Whaley Moor featured in Channel 4's series Grand Designs. Whaley most likely comes from the Celtic word Wallace, meaning water. A tributary of the River Poulter runs through this village, and there are a number of local springs. A well, now capped, was situated near Red Brick Cottage. Alright, that's enough of Whaley, or Whalley, as some Langwith people suggested it was pronounced. Let's head back into Bolsover via Shuttlewood and Stanfree. So as well as Bolsover, there's also 2 other settlements that fall to the north of the town within the old Bolsover parish boundaries. This is one of them. We are in Stanfree here, and the easiest way to show you this is to put the camera on the dashboard and drive around it in a circle, because it does, thankfully, on the map at least, look as if it is easy enough to drive around like that. The building in front of me is the Apple Tree Inn, or what used to be the Apple Tree Inn anyway. So yeah, that's one major feature of Stanfree. So the camera's going on the dashboard, and I'll leave it on the dashboard as well when we're finished, because the other settlement is Shuttlewood, and that's a long linear village, and that leads us back into Bolsover. Stanfree consists of a couple of rows of terraced cottages lying halfway between Shuttlewood and Clown. It's mentioned in Bagshaw's Directory of 1846 and states it's a hamlet about 2¼ miles north of Bolsover Marketplace. It's thought by some to draw its name from the fact that though in a stony neighbourhood, this is free from surface stone, or it may even have a Roman or British origin. Iron seems to have been smelted here in primitive ages, and coal was worked some 500 years ago. Remains of the workings of both can be found, and the 4 roads meeting here are said by tradition to once have been the main roads of England, and Stanfree to have been a special meeting place. The local colliery that was a drift mine was closed in 1974. Only the Oxcroft Miners' Welfare, that was destroyed by fire in the late 1980s and rebuilt on the site of the cricket pavilion, is the last reminder that a colliery once stood there. The Apple Tree Inn on the corner of Apple Tree Road and Clown Road closed in 2008. This brings us to Shuttlewood. Shuttlewood as well is also a former colliery village and thus has a lengthy mining heritage. It's a quiet village with a local shop, and it had a post office until June 2008. It also has a school. This is Brockley Primary School, that's run by Derbyshire County Council. It has a foundation unit for younger pupils, and it provides education for pupils between the ages of 5 and 11. In 2005, a war memorial was unveiled at the school dedicated to the 25 men of both Shuttlewood and Stanfree who gave their lives during the First and Second World Wars. A map of Shuttlewood dated 1898 shows a brick and tile yard situated on Woodthorpe Road, now in the vicinity of Woodthorpe Close. Alright, it's time you lovely people had a picture bit for Bolsover, and here that comes right now. Okay, to finish this one off and to finish off the entire district of Bolsover, I've come full circle because I'm standing in a place called Hillstown. Now this should have been covered in Scarcliffe because the boundary for some strange reason includes this part of Bolsover in with Scarcliffe. So this is not actually within Old Bolsover, this is Scarcliffe Parish. A few people after watching that Scarcliffe episode asked where Hillstown was. Well, it's right here. I'm not going to leave it out. We're going to have a quick walk around here, see what we can find, and then that's the district totally complete. Let's go. There's actually very little information about Hillstown you can find online, so for this part I'm just going to let the visuals do the talking. Here's my walk around Hillstown to finish off the entire district of Bolsover. Do you know, I don't think I could have planned this better because this walk now ends at the Bolsover sign where Hillstown and the parish of Scarcliffe meets Old Bolsover, and that's kind of good really because that really is full circle considering I started with Scarcliffe and I've ended here in Old Bolsover, and of course it's the end of the district with this as its name, so this is a very appropriate way to end, stood right next to the Bolsover sign. 16 parishes in the eastern slice of Derbyshire, and they're now all complete, and I can move on to the next one. Thank you so much for watching every single one of these. It's been fantastic to interact with all you Bolsover locals, and I hope you've enjoyed watching all 16 of these episodes. I found out some stuff about this part of Derbyshire that I never even knew before I came here, but I'm sure you have as well. It's been fantastic. I've loved it. I've enjoyed every single minute, and don't forget that there's going to be a roundup episode coming in 2 weeks time after this one goes out. So if there's anything else you want me to include in that for any of the 16 parishes in Bolsover, please do let me know and I will do my best to include it in that roundup episode. But for now, I've been Andy, I've been the Village Idiot, and this has been the parish and the town of Old Bolsover and the district of Bolsover in Derbyshire, and until next time, I'm out.